In the early 1840s, women fainted in concert halls across Europe. Audiences fought over broken piano strings like sacred relics. The man responsible played with such ferocity that he routinely shattered instruments mid-performance, and the frenzy he ignited was so extreme that doctors coined a clinical term for it, Lisztomania. Franz Liszt was not just the greatest pianist of his century, he was the most dangerous performer to ever command a keyboard. And the story of how a boy, born in a tiny Hungarian village in 1811, became that force begins far earlier than you would expect. His earliest memories were shaped by the sound of music at home. Adam Liszt, his father, was a man of many talents, officially a steward on the Esterhazy estate, but also a skilled cellist, violinist and pianist. Evenings in the Liszt household revolved around music, with impromptu trios, sight-reading sessions, and the kind of playful improvisations that would later echo in Franz's own performances. Adam recognized his son's gift early. By the time Franz was 6, he could pick out melodies after a single hearing. At 7, he was already performing short pieces for family friends, astonishing guests with his memory and his ability to invent variations on the spot. Adam's ambitions for his son were clear. He arranged for Franz to study with local teachers, but soon realized these lessons could only take the boy so far. In 1822, the Liszts packed their belongings and moved to Vienna, the center of European music. It was here that Adam secured the mentorship of Carl Czerny, a former student of Beethoven and a respected teacher in his own right. Czerny's reports from those first lessons are almost legendary. Franz could sight-read orchestral scores at age 11 and improvise complex passages after a single listen. Czerny drilled him in scales, finger independence, and the technical routines that would become the foundation of modern piano pedagogy. Yet he also recognized something rare, a fearless musical imagination eager to break past the boundaries of the printed page. Alongside Czerny, Franz studied composition with Antonio Salieri, another towering figure in Viennese music. The daily routine was rigorous, hours of scales and exercises followed by afternoons spent absorbing the works of Mozart, Haydn, and Beethoven. Adam kept a close watch, guiding his son's progress and managing each new opportunity. By the end of that first year in Vienna, Franz was no longer just a child with a talent. He was a young artist, already preparing for the kind of technical feats and interpretive risks that would soon electrify Europe. On a crisp February evening in 1824, the doors of a Parisian salon opened to reveal a gathering of the city's cultural elite. At the center of the room stood a slender 12-year-old boy, hands poised over the gleaming keys of a Sebastian Erard grand piano. Franz Liszt, still a newcomer to the Paris scene, was about to perform for an audience that included composers, critics, and aristocrats. The host, Erard himself, had recognized something rare in the young prodigy. He offered Liszt an exclusive contract. The boy would play only on Erard pianos in Paris, in exchange for the newest instruments and the prestige of being linked to the city's most advanced piano maker. The arrangement was more than a business deal. It was a stamp of approval from the very top of the Parisian music world. Liszt's performance that night, a concerto by Johann Nepomuk Hummel, left a lasting impression. The Allgemeine Musikalische Zeitung reported that his playing was a force that rattled the very strings of the instrument. The Erard piano, with its double escapement action, allowed for rapid repetition and a clarity of sound that matched Liszt's own technical daring. Word of the evening spread quickly. Paris had seen prodigies before, but few with this combination of speed, elegance, and sheer confidence. The following spring, the Liszts crossed the Channel to London. In May and June of 1825, Franz performed at royal gatherings, including a recital at Carlton House for King George IV. The English press took notice. The Morning Chronicle described a sudden surge of applause that seemed to shake the gallery. During his concert at the New Argyle Rooms, aristocrats and musicians crowded into Devonshire House, eager to witness the Hungarian boy wonder. Each engagement added to his reputation, cementing his status as a sensation not only in Paris, but across the continent. These early tours transformed Liszt from a private marvel into a public phenomenon. backed by the Erard contract and the endorsement of British royalty, he moved from city to city with the aura of a celebrity. His concerts became social events, drawing crowds that included both the fashionable elite and the musical establishment. By the age of 14, Franz Liszt was no longer simply a gifted child. He was a rising star, his name already echoing through the salons and concert halls of Europe. Thunderous applause shuddered through concert halls from Paris to Berlin. By the early 1840s, his performances had become a spectacle that left even seasoned critics at a loss for words. The term Lisztomania first appeared in French newspapers, struggling to capture the fever that swept through the crowds. Fans lined up for hours, clutching programs and handkerchiefs they hoped he might touch. Police reports from Paris in 1840 detail injuries among stagehands and a surge in souvenir sales. 2,500 handkerchiefs printed with Liszt's image vanished from shops in a single season. The hysteria was not just about celebrity, it was the sound itself, the sheer scale and violence of what Liszt could do with the piano. At the heart of the frenzy were works that pushed the instrument and the human hand to their limits. The Transcendental Études, first published in their final form in 1852, demanded massive leaps, rapid-fire octaves, and a dynamic range that could swing from the softest whisper to a roar that filled the hall. Contemporary reviews described the Études as a test of both nerve and muscle, with passages so ferocious that even professional pianists hesitated to attempt them in public. No piece captured this spirit more than La Campanella, Liszt's transformation of Paganini's violin fireworks into a pianistic tightrope walk. The right hand leaps up and down the keyboard, chasing bell-like motifs at breakneck speed, while the left hand anchors the swirling texture. The score calls for repeated jumps of more than an octave, staccato notes that ring clear as glass, and a control of touch that borders on the impossible. Pianist Gerhard Scholz called it the most physically demanding piece in the standard repertoire. None of these feats would have been possible without the era's technological leap in piano design. The Erard Grand, with its double escapement action, allowed Liszt to repeat notes faster than any earlier instrument. But as his demands grew, he turned to the Broadwood piano, a British marvel with a reinforced iron frame and a deeper, more resonant tone. The Broadwood's mechanics could withstand the hurricane force of Liszt's playing, its keys responding to every nuance, from thunderous chords to the lightest touch. British newspapers noted the rich, sonorous power of the Broadwood at Liszt's London recitals, where the instrument seemed to become an extension of his own body. Liszt's concerts became a laboratory for new sounds and new ways of playing. He broke with tradition by performing entire evenings of solo piano music, no orchestra, no supporting acts, just one man and the keys. His hands blurred in a flurry of arpeggios, trills, and lightning-fast scales. Audiences gasped at the sight of him crossing his arms, playing with wrists, elbows, even forearms when the score demanded it. The press described him as possessed, a sorcerer at the keyboard. The impact was immediate and overwhelming. Critics debated whether Liszt was a genius or a charlatan, whether his art elevated the soul or corrupted public taste. But the crowds kept coming, night after night, filling every seat and spilling into the aisles. In Berlin, ticket sales for his 1843 concerts forced the venue to open the balcony for extra admissions. In London, the Royal Philharmonic Society recorded a surge of new members, many drawn by the promise of witnessing Liszt's latest technical marvels. For a moment, the boundaries of music itself seemed to dissolve. The piano was no longer just an instrument, it was a weapon, an altar, a stage for the most extreme feats of human expression. And at the centre of it all stood Franz Liszt, the showman innovator who turned performance into a kind of controlled chaos. The world had never seen anything like it, and the echoes of that frenzy would ripple through music history for generations. Behind the thunder of applause and the spectacle of packed concert halls, Franz Liszt faced a different reality. The relentless touring schedule that fueled Lisztomania also took a heavy toll. Letters from the mid-1840s reveal a man stretched to his limits, confessing to friends that he felt hunted by his own fame. In one note to Marie de Gaulle, his partner and confidant. Liszt wrote of nights without sleep, headaches that last for days, and a longing for silence. His days were a blur of rehearsals, performances, and travel, sometimes 3 concerts in as many cities within a single week. The physical demands of his playing style, leaps, octaves, and the new athleticism he brought to the piano left his hands swollen and his nerves frayed. The creative cost was just as real. Liszt's pursuit of technical and expressive extremes drove him to rethink what the piano could do, but it also isolated him. The B-minor Sonata, completed in the early 1850s and published in 1854, stands as a testament to this period of inner conflict. Unlike the dazzling showpieces that made him a star, the sonata is a single, unbroken movement that twists through storms and moments of quiet reflection. Critics of the time struggled to understand it. Some dismissed it as chaotic. Others called it a masterpiece ahead of its time. Pianist Angela Hewitt later described its emotional extremes, knit together with a clear, expressive focus, a work that demands not just virtuosity, but a deep sense of structure and restraint. Marie Dagou's influence ran deep. Their relationship, equal parts romance, collaboration, and intellectual partnership, shaped Liszt's music and his sense of purpose. Dagou encouraged him to look beyond the crowd's approval, to write for himself and for the future. Their correspondence reveals an artist wrestling with his own ambition, torn between the need to astonish and the desire to create something lasting. Liszt's sense of identity was never just personal. He carried the weight of his Hungarian roots, especially as nationalist movements swept through Europe. In the 1840s and the 1850s, he began to channel this pride into music. The Hungarian Rhapsodies, published between 1851 and 1853, are more than virtuoso showpieces. They are declarations of cultural allegiance. Drawing on folk melodies, Roma violin styles, and the rhythms of the Hungarian verbunkos, these works became symbols of a nation's voice. The Rhapsodies were instantly popular, but Liszt treated them with seriousness, revising and expanding the set over several years. In his prefaces and letters, he insisted that this music was not mere entertainment, but a tribute to his homeland's spirit. As the years wore on, the cost of public adoration became harder to ignore. Liszt's letters from the mid-1850s mention exhaustion that cannot be cured by rest, and friends noted his growing distance from the social world that once energized him. By the time the B-minor Sonata was published, Liszt had largely withdrawn from the touring circuit, seeking refuge in Weimar and later in Rome. Yet even in retreat, his music bore the imprint of those years, restless, searching, and always reaching for something beyond the ordinary. The virtuoso, who once seemed invincible, had revealed his human side, and in doing so, deepened the meaning of his art. In 1848, Franz Liszt arrived in Weimar, seeking quiet after years of relentless touring. The city, with its storied past as a centre of German culture, became his new workshop. Appointed Kapellmeister at the ducal court, Liszt was no longer the travelling virtuoso, but a resident artist with the resources to experiment. Weimar archives detail a steady stream of rehearsals, premieres, and gatherings that brought together musicians, writers, and painters. Here, Liszt's ambitions shifted. He began to see himself not just as a performer, but as a creator and mentor, a catalyst for new directions in music. Princess Caroline von Sayn-Wittgenstein, a Russian noblewoman and Liszt's closest companion during these years, played a decisive role. Their correspondence reveals a partnership built on both affection and artistic vision. Caroline encouraged Liszt to pursue larger forms, to think beyond the piano and imagine music that could tell stories and evoke landscapes. Under her influence, Liszt began to shape the idea of the symphonic poem, a single-movement orchestral work that blended narrative and music. The first of these, Ce qu'on entend sur la montagne, premiered in Weimar in 1854. The symphonic poem was a new genre, unbound by the traditions of the classical symphony. Liszt's Weimar circle, which included the young Richard Wagner, became a hub for this kind of innovation. Wagner's own experiments with music drama found fertile ground here, and the two composers exchanged ideas in letters and late-night discussions. Liszt championed Wagner's works, conducting early performances of Lohengrin and offering both material and moral support at a time when Wagner's music was still controversial. The Weimar years, also saw Liszt mentoring a generation of composers, Hans von Bülow, Peter Cornelius and Joachim Raff among them. Court records and letters document Liszt's open-door policy, with students and colleagues gathering for lessons, critiques and musical debates. He pushed them to break boundaries, to find their own voices, and to see composition as a living art. The city itself became a laboratory for artistic reform, with Liszt at its centre, shaping the future of music from behind the scenes. The world Liszt left behind looks strikingly familiar to anyone who attends a modern concert or studies piano today. In the 1840s, he introduced the solo recital as we know it, an entire evening built around a single performer, with a program chosen and shaped by the artist alone. Before Liszt, public concerts were usually patchwork affairs, mixing ensembles, singers, and a parade of guest artists. Liszt's format centered the pianist as both interpreter and creator, transforming the stage into a place for personal statement and technical display. The earliest documented ticketed solo recitals date from his tours in London and Paris, where programs listed only Liszt's name and audiences paid to see him alone command the entire evening. This new model rippled through the music world. Liszt's approach to performance, complete with dramatic silences, carefully sequenced works, and a sense of narrative flow, became the blueprint for generations of concert artists. Today, the solo recital remains the gold standard for pianists, violinists, and vocalists alike. But Liszt's legacy extends far beyond the stage. In Weimar, he established the masterclass, inviting young musicians to play for him in public and then offering guidance as both mentor and critic. These gatherings were more than lessons, they were performances in themselves, with students and listeners learning by witnessing the creative process up close. The tradition continues in conservatories and summer festivals around the world, where the lineage of Liszt's teaching flows directly through his students, names like Alexander Celotti, who taught Sergei Rachmaninoff, and Karl Tausig, whose own pupils shaped the next century of pianism. Liszt also set the template for the modern musical celebrity. The frenzy of Lisztomania, with fans collecting locks of hair, crowding stage doors and buying souvenirs, foreshadowed the fan culture that now surrounds pop stars and athletes. The press coverage, the public image, even the idea of an artist's brand, all have roots in the way Liszt managed his career and interacted with his audience. His blend of dazzling skill, personal magnetism, and public engagement created a model for stardom that stretches from the concert halls of the 19th century to today's arenas and streaming platforms. In nearly every aspect of music culture, performance, teaching, and fame, the world still plays by rules, Liszt wrote. Liszt's legacy is not just preserved in sheet music or myth. It lives on every time an artist takes the stage and dares to break the rules. The spectacle he unleashed set the template for the modern musical superstar. As performance and celebrity continue to shape music today, Liszt's innovations remind us the power to transfix an audience can still change what we believe is possible. What endures is the risk.